the 1st of December 2022. This video is on the Irish hate speech bill. It's published online. It's in the second stage reading at the moment, and I'm going to go over some of the points and give my opinion on some of it. There's a meeting on Saturday. I don't know will I get up. A protest in Dublin city centre at 1 p.m. But anyway, I might as well have my say and help to get people to understand the basics of it. There's no point talking about a bill if one doesn't know what's in that bill. Now, I'll be stopping and starting a bit to get the sections here. The bill introduces a concept of protected characteristics for persons. I'm shouting a bit because I want to be clearly heard so there's no mistakes in my video or trying to catch what words I say. Sometimes I repeat the sentence to make sure it's clear, because I find on YouTube a lot you cannot catch some of the words that are said. So a protected characteristic in the act in relation to a person or a group of persons means one of the following: the race, colour, nationality, religion or ethnic origin, descent, that's your descent, who you're descended from, gender, sex characteristics. What is a sex characteristic? What exactly is a sex characteristic? Sexual orientation. Well, that'd be fair enough. That's gay, lesbian, LGBTQ, all this stuff, drag queens, the whole lot. That's all right. That's easily understood. But I don't know what sex characteristic is. Disability, no problem there. Somebody in a wheelchair, somebody who has Down syndrome, somebody who has some other challenge and all that. So we'll go through those now again of those characteristics. Race. Does that include the Irish race? If there are laws based on race of people or groups of people, and I criticise them, does that mean if they're Irish, I can be taken up under this act? If Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, who is, I think he's Singh or he's Indian, he's making a disaster, he's a disastrous Prime Minister, can I be taken up on that? Well, there's an exemption in the Act for general comment. What if I meet him and say, oh, yeah, who are you here from Pakistan or India? How dare you do this? See, that's the thing. Race. What about our Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar? Is he behind this? He's not our Taoiseach, he will be soon. What about that? What about his race? What the hell difference is it? I know Irish people went abroad and were told no dogs, no Irish, and all this thing. But at the same time, surely all the races of the world are different. I'm particularly affiliated to and have great time for, and I'm the only Irish campaigner for the release of the Native American man Leonard Peltier. I love those people. I go over to visit them, and I'm a friend of theirs. I'm also made a video on the North Sentinelese Island people who are up there. Nobody knows who or what they're doing there, or who they are, or how they got there. Nobody can talk to them. The Indian government has protected them. And when Johnny Chow went up to teach them the Bible, they shot him with a bow and arrow and killed him. Right? So that's the thing. So I'm not against these races. Does that mean I have to have the same attitude to everybody? And if they're Russians, what attitude have I to have? Have I to have my attitude? Is race going to be defined by the diktat of the Irish government? Huh? What about my people when they were put out of Northern Ireland? A branch of my family were planted and transplanted out of Northern Ireland by the plantation of Ulster. Were they not allowed to shout up at the people doing it? Go home, you English, who are you? Under this, they wouldn't be. And under this, if a group of people from South Africa, for the sake of an example, or from China, were to be put into your house and you're put out, you can't give them any criticism on coming from China to take your house. Okay? This is why this is a very, very dangerous piece of legislation. The next thing is on colour. So how far does that go? Who decides? How do we know what we can say? If somebody is obviously Oriental or Indian or African, and they come from America, can we criticise them? Can I criticise Barack Obama for the villainy and the destruction he wrought on the environment with his climate change nonsense. Can I call him names? Now, I would agree, you shouldn't be able to call him any derogatory name. It's not, there's no need. I mean, if somebody says, oh, Val, you old white tramp, you. I don't mind being called a white tramp. And if I was black, I wouldn't mind being called a black tramp either. Now, nationality. Straight away, you see, they don't tell us what nationality it is. So how are we to know which nationality is which? Apparently we can speak out against the Russians, but we can't speak out against some other nationalities. And what about the Irish? I've already expressed my hatred for 25% of Irish people because they vote for Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, Sinn Féin and all these other crowd. So where is nationality? Religion. What if a Muslim fella says, under our religion, you should have your head cut off with a sword? And I said, go to hell with you. I mean, why is all this thing about religion? I noticed when the Catholic religion during the penal laws wanted to have protection, they had none. National or ethnic origin. So, where are you from? See? They should put in their county. County. South Dublin, I think, should be mentioned because we hate the people there in Dublin Bay South for electing Eamon Ryan. A portion of them elected a jackass. And he's an Irish lad. Descent. More of it. A big wide net. Gender. So, I mean, can I come along today and say, you're a woman? I mean, with sisters, a mother, children, grandchildren, and everything else. What the hell has gender got to do with it? But what they're really getting at is, and this is why there's a man in jail, Enoch Burke, still in jail, for calling a boy him. See what they're getting at here? This extreme woke American Democratic Party wokeism. Don't forget Frances Fitzgerald of Fine Gael, she's now an MEP, gave between 5 and 15 million euros to Hillary Clinton's election fund in 2016. Sex characteristics. Again, what's a sex characteristic? That could mean they're using some kind of a... I haven't a clue. But I do know that in English law, there is a concept in English law called extreme pornography. What is extreme pornography? Well, there was a bomb put off in England years ago in which the Queen's Household Cavalry, I think it was all those horses, were attacked by a provisional IRA bomb, and it contained nails. It was a nasty thing, and it killed soldiers and it killed a lot of horses. I remember one of them was Chevron. There was a big thing in the paper about the poor old horse. It was a lousy thing to do. But recent years, one of the guys involved in that was caught for having extreme pornography and was prosecuted and pleaded guilty. So what's extreme pornography? Who knows what this is? Sexual orientation. So here we have sex characteristics, now we have sexual orientation, and we have disability. Does anyone attack people for being physically or mentally disabled in Ireland today? I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. But remember, there is nothing here about age. There's a big difference in shouting abuse at me, an old lad like me, go home, you old culchy farmer, and shouting that to a young lad of 16 or 15. Just imagine a young, we'll say African chap, tall young lad, after coming out from secondary school, and he's walking up the road in Ireland, and someone shouts at him, go home, you N-word, or go home, you black bee, or something. That is a horrible thing to do. That is the most ugly, horrible thing to do to a youngster. A youngster is in a different position than an old lad, an old fella. A totally different position. And he's not able to defend himself. And he's still finding his way in the world. And they give this thing, the Irish were called this and that. But I don't know did this happen. But even if it did, it's not happening now. Now, the thing about it is, there was a young chap called Jamie Heaslip. He was from Carrickabboy, near Cross Keys in County Cavan. And he was the son of a Catholic and a Protestant parent. And he was abused in this way. And I attended St. Patrick's College in Cavan for a short while in my youth. And there was this bullying going on by the older classes against the younger classes. And I always remember them talking about putting students' heads down the toilet and flushing it. But Jamie Heaslip, a lovely young chap, was killed. He took his own life because he felt there was nowhere he could turn. No one ever told him in school how to handle bullying. He had nobody to mention it to. There was nobody he could do it to. Things just went wrong. I'm sure there were 40 other cases where somebody intervened and helped, but poor Jamie, a beautiful young fella, God, is terrible, in a country area, was driven to commit suicide by abuse by his peers. And there's a big campaign on now. It's a credit to the people. Be buddies, not bullies. And how the people rally to that is such an example in basic Irish humanity and charity. Poor parents. God, my heart goes out to the parents of that child. But there's nothing here about age. If the motive of the act was to protect a young Pakistani, or indeed a black chap, could be from America. He could be an African American, and he could be as black as could be, and his father might be working in the American embassy, and he could be walking up the road, and he could get abused. There's nothing to protect the age. That is a serious flaw. If it was to protect young people, I wouldn't be as strong against it, and I'm against this bill. In this act, in relation to characteristics, it goes on about these characteristics, reference to religion and the absence of religion, so atheism or all that. Now, gender means gender of a person, or a gender which a person expresses as the person's preferred gender. So now they can decide whether they're men or women. You see a fella, he's a man, a good lad. Don't you call me a lad. I'm a woman. What a ridiculous nonsense thing. I know a small amount of gay men. I don't actually know any gay women. And they tell me all this stuff is in their face. They don't want it at all. I voted for marriage equality on the basis that they could go on and get married and do what they like and be happy. I didn't vote for this. But you see, the hidden agenda was behind that vote. You see, reference to sex characteristics shall be construed as reference to the physical and biological features of a person relating to sex, and disability has a meaning within the Equal Status Act. I have no problem with disability. We already have that more or less dealt with, Equal Status Act and all that. I think this is simply the woke, cultural Marxist agenda, the World Economic Forum, the globalization racket which is going to fail, and the American Democratic Party under Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all these lefty green creeps. Expenses, that's all right. Now we go on now to interpretation. It deals with a lot of things, material, and have a public place, which is the same as the Road Traffic Act, and for displaying symbols and all that. But very important in the act is the ability of whoever administers it, who will be the Gardaí probably, and maybe some other agency, to search. So they could have information that Jack Riley has a whole heap of hateful stuff, and they mightn't want to let the owner know of the house how they found out, so they search 6 houses instead. They get warrants to search 6 houses. So this idea that anyone that likes can go before a judge of the district court, a basic judge, and obtain a warrant to search your home based on this baloney. See, your privacy is straight away being attacked. Offences of incitement to violence and hatred against persons on account of protected characteristics. So essentially, it's an offence to do any of this. Now, violence is already covered by all of the laws. There's plenty of violent as all the laws, plenty of laws for breach of the peace, plenty of it. It's already overloaded, and nobody decides. There's no repeals, except there is a repeal of one earlier act, but by and large that other law stays there. So this is a special heavy penalty with special spread of the liability for these particular groups. So a person who communicates to the public, or a section of the public, or behaves in a public place, that's the protest coming up on Saturday, that is likely to incite violence, hatred against a person or group of persons on account of their protected characteristics or any of those characteristics, and does so with intent to incite violence. We already have the violence. Why is violence against me not included? What was wrong with the law we had that protected the ordinary Irish people from violence or hatred against any person or group of persons on account of those characteristics, or any of those characteristics, or being reckless as to whether to do or not, or hatred, is thereby incited. So we already had an incitement to hatred act. We had an incitement to hatred act in Northern Ireland, that you couldn't stand up and belittle nationalist people because of their Catholic religion, and the Catholic couldn't ridicule Protestant people on behalf of their religion. That applies to everything. My objection to this is it singles out the plan of Eamon Ryan, who is in my video 16A. He wants 5 million migrants into this country, and he wants to level out the playing field for them by penalising us and making us subject to more laws, right? He wouldn't let Asi Bibi, a Catholic woman from Pakistan, in here. She was to be hanged, and he wouldn't let her in. Neither would the government. 16A is that video. Does so with intent to incite violence or hatred to such person. Well, how do you prove intent of those persons? What happens if we become overtaken? What happens when I become in the minority and I go to complain? The whole country's loaded down with foreigners, and I can't get my basic stuff. My children can't get housing. We can't get mortgages. We can't get everything. It shall not be an offence this goes on about an EU directive. The government doesn't obey EU law anyway. Now, in proceedings for an offence under this section, it shall be a defence to prove that the material concerned, or insofar as appropriate, the behaviour concerned, consists of solely a reasonable and genuine contribution to literacy, artistic, political, scientific, religious, or academic discourse. The main one for me is political. So how far can that go? How can a judge decide whether my... So the thing is not all our protests about all this mass migration, is it not all political? Is it not all political? How is a judge going to decide that? A statement that is subject to the defence of absolute privilege, that's to cover the TDs above and the doll. So we need to get in there. Well, we can do it. Material behaviour, as in the case as may be, that is necessary for any lawful purpose, including law enforcement or investigation or prosecution of offences. That's so that the police and all those can do their job. It's irrelevant to this. In any proceedings for an offence under this section it shall be a defence for the body that deal with companies. Not relevant. Well, it is a bit with companies, but we're talking about individuals. And then there's a penalty there, 12 months in prison before the district court, or on a plea to the district court, and a conviction on indictment, that's with the judge and jury in the circuit court, 5 years imprisonment, not exceeding 5 years imprisonment. So that's what you can end up for simply speaking your mind. Now another one here is the offence of condoning, denial, trivialization, genocide. So in Germany, it's a criminal offence to say the Holocaust didn't exist. I know the Holocaust did happen, but the question is, who decides what is a Holocaust? The Israelis are now doing the same to the Palestinian people, in some people's opinion. The Russians are supposed to be doing it to the Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians killed thousands of Russians in Odessa and killed them all over and destroyed them, and you can't open your mouth. Who decides what's a Holocaust? Who decides what's serious or what isn't serious? Or trivialises genocide? Isn't the attack on Irish people now genocide? They're putting us out. A crime against humanity, a war crime, or, well, the war crime perhaps might be all right, but that's for law. There is law to deal with war crimes. There is law to deal with genocide. There's laws to deal with crimes against humanity. Isn't Slobodan Milosevic in prison, or some of them fellas out in Serbia, for that? Communicates material to the public, behaves in a public place, that condones or denies or grossly trivialises. What the hell is it to our government, or anyone else, what we think? How are we going to know what happened if we can't question and cross-question it? Where such communication or material or behaviour is directed against a person or group of persons on account of their protected characteristics or any of those characteristics, and is done with intent to incite violence or hatred in such a group or person on account of their characteristics or any of those characteristics. We have that law there already. We don't in Ireland or most places go against Jews. I've never spoken against Jewish people. I have spoken against the Germans for being crackpots. A lot of the Holocaust was because they were crackpots. Their energy policy is now crackpots. They're destroying my environment. I have my environment beside me here destroyed by German directive. So why can I not say that? Characteristics, race, Germans, they're head cases. Not all. There's about 20% of them not head cases. But there's a large majority that wield the power who are nuts. And their energy crisis now is as a result of that. So I will not be able to say that. They are nutcases, the Germans. Now we go on there. There's a whole lot of stuff about all of the things there, and I'll not go into it. Genocide means any act specified in Article 6 of the Rome Statutes where such an act has been determined to be genocide by final decision of the court in the state of international tribunal. It's not necessary. It is not necessary to go this far. And then they go on about when you're found guilty and what can be done and all that. And a person in possession of material. So you print out something and they think you're going to come and have a placard. They can search your home. I said that before. Protection of freedom of expression. Don't be fooled by this. For the purposes of this part, any material or behaviour is not taken to incite violence or hatred against a person or group of persons on account of their protected characteristics or any of those characteristics solely on the basis that the material or behaviour includes or involves discussion or criticisms of matters relating to protected characteristics. How is a court going to deal with that? That's section 11. How does that not neutralise the whole thing? In the EIA Environment Directive, there's a section, Article 13 in the Annex 2, that neutralises the whole lot. I have made a submission on it. You go in and you fight your case on the directive, and they can come along and say, well, Article 13 means it doesn't apply at all. Why is there Article 11 in there? If it's necessary to have this law, there shouldn't be a get-out clause. It's left to the judge. And I have shown that 3 judges in the Irish High Court have refused to accept the SEA directive, and 7 in the Supreme Court have said it has to go to the European Court of Justice. 7 in the Supreme Court and 3 in the High Court, totally different views. Jurisdiction, that's where it can be prosecuted. And then there's offences on body corporate, and so certain proceedings only to be with consent of directed public prosecutions. Who the hell is he? Why should my safety and future and liable to prosecution be in the hands of him? This was meant to be for criminal charges, people who do criminal acts. Search warrants, there can be a search warrant issued, and a forfeiture, they can take your property. And then there's the amendments to the Criminal Damage Act, damaging property by aggravated by hatred. Well, surely if you break into an Irishman's house and you damage his property, that's a crime straight away. If he's from Mexico, that should be just a simple crime. What if the Mexican breaks into my house? Is that covered by this? You see, implicit in this act and bill is it depends on the woke parties. It doesn't depend on the way the people think in relation to Trump thinks or Conservatives thinks. And they'll eventually have it made a crime to say there's no climate change. That's the next thing that's coming. I'll be criminalised for saying there's no climate change. Okay? Folks, that's the act and the bill. I think I've given it a fair rundown there, and I hope it's useful for people in the various parties to understand, and anyone that's acting in politics or in the Senate, you needn't be trying it in the Dáil, should get this blocked. This is a very, very dangerous threat to our democracy and a threat to the way laws are drafted, to be sure and certain that you know what the law is, you abide the law, and if you break it, you suffer the penalty, and if you don't break it, you don't. This is fuzzy-wuzzy law. Fuzzy-wuzzy law. And it is no place in a proper democracy. This is an attack on democracy to make laws that nobody knows what they are. Give me a thumbs up, folks, or a thumbs down. I'm not shouting because I'm angry. I'm shouting so that everyone understands this, so that I don't find myself in Dublin or anywhere else explaining this. Here's the video. This is the law. It's there online. You can get it. It's the bill, incitement to violence and hatred bill. You'll get it there if you want to read it. But most people don't know how to read these laws. I know how to read them to the full stop and the comma. And I'm sharing that with you as part of my campaign. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Goodbye. Thank you.